11 Stoic Habits That Will Level Up Your Life. Stoicism for Self-Discipline and Mental Strength. The opening truth. Most people are going to wake up tomorrow the same way they woke up today. Same thoughts. Same habits. Same quiet frustration that something is missing, that life could be more, that they could be more, but with no clear idea of what to actually do about it. And the day after that? The same. And the month after that? The same. Not because they are lazy. Not because they are not intelligent. Not because the life they want is out of reach. But because they are operating without a system. Without a code. Without a set of principles powerful enough to cut through the noise, the distraction, the fear, and actually produce a different human being on the other side. Today, that changes. Welcome to Stoic Mindset. If you are new here, subscribe right now. Hit that bell. Because what we build on this channel is not inspiration that evaporates by lunchtime. This is philosophy you can live. Wisdom that has been stress-tested for over 2,000 years by emperors, slaves, soldiers, and scholars. Today we are going through the habits. The actual, daily, repeatable practices that separate the person who talks about a better life from the person who builds one. Stoic habits. 11 of them. Not theories. Not concepts. Habits. Because the Stoics understood something that most modern self-help completely misses. You do not think your way into a better life. You habit your way there. Character is not declared. It is built. Brick by brick. Day by day. Choice by choice. Let's build. Habit 1. Wake with intention, not with reaction. The first battle of your day happens before you have said a single word. It happens in the first 60 seconds after you open your eyes. In those 60 seconds, you make a choice, usually without knowing you are making it, about who is going to be in control of your day. Most people hand that control away immediately. The phone comes off the nightstand. The notifications flood in. Someone else's emergency becomes your first thought. Someone else's opinion becomes your first emotion. The algorithm decides what your mind will be filled with before you have had a single deliberate thought of your own. And from that moment, you are reacting. For the rest of the day. To everything except what you actually chose. Marcus Aurelius did not do this. Every morning Marcus, Emperor of Rome, commander of legions, ruler of millions, began his day with his own mind. He wrote. He reflected. He prepared. He asked himself what kind of man he intended to be that day. What virtues he would practice. What difficulties he anticipated and how he would meet them with character rather than impulse. He set his intention before the world got its hands on him. This is the first Stoic habit, and it is the one that makes all the others possible. Own your morning before your morning owns you. Before the phone. Before the news. Before anyone else's needs reach you. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 15 if you can. Ask yourself one question. Who am I choosing to be today? Write the answer. Speak it. Hold it. That question, answered deliberately every single morning, will do more for your life than any productivity system ever invented. Because it starts from the inside. From choice. From intention. Not from reaction. Habit 2. Practice the premeditation of hardship. This one will feel counterintuitive. Because we live in a culture obsessed with positive thinking. With vision boards and manifestation and focusing only on what you want. And I am not here to dismiss the power of direction. Knowing where you are going matters enormously. But the Stoics added something that most modern thinking leaves out entirely. They called it premeditatio malorum. The premeditation of evils. Or, in gentler language, the deliberate contemplation of what could go wrong. Before Marcus Aurelius left his private chambers each morning, he would mentally rehearse the difficulties of the day ahead. He would think, today I will encounter ingratitude. Today someone will disappoint me. Today I will face frustration, incompetence, conflict, delay. Not as pessimism. Not as dread. As preparation. Because here is what this practice does that positive thinking alone cannot. It removes the shock of difficulty. When you have already imagined the hard conversation, the unexpected setback, the person who tries your patience, when it actually arrives, you are not ambushed. You are ready. You have already decided how you will respond. And a person who has already decided their response cannot be destabilized by circumstance. Think about the areas of your life right now where you are most anxious. It is almost always the areas where you are the least prepared for things to go wrong. The relationship where you have never thought about what happens if it becomes difficult. The business venture where you have only imagined success. The plan that has no contingency. Start thinking about what could go wrong, not to fear it, but to be ready for it. The Stoics did not avoid difficulty. They prepared for it so thoroughly that when it arrived, it found them standing, not stumbling. That is the second habit. Prepare for hardship so that hardship never catches you unprepared. Habit 3. Control the controllable, release the rest. If there is one idea at the absolute heart of Stoic philosophy, the one idea that, if you truly internalized it, would change your psychology overnight, it is this. There are things within your control, and things outside it. Your entire quality of life depends on knowing the difference. Epictetus taught this as the foundation of everything. He called it the dichotomy of control, and he was ruthless about it. Within your control, your thoughts, your choices, your effort, your values, your responses, your character. Outside your control, everything else. Other people's opinions. The economy. The weather. How your work is received. Whether you are recognized. Whether people are fair to you. Most people spend the majority of their emotional energy on the second category. They are angry about things they cannot change. Anxious about outcomes they cannot control. Exhausted by trying to manage other people's behavior, other people's opinions, other people's choices. And all of that energy, every ounce of it, is wasted. Not partially wasted. Completely wasted. Because your anger at something you cannot control does not change it. Your anxiety about an uncertain outcome does not improve it. Your frustration with someone else's character does not alter it. It only exhausts you. The Stoic practice here is not passive acceptance. This is one of the most misunderstood things about Stoicism. Accepting what is outside your control does not mean doing nothing. It means directing your energy precisely, only toward what can actually respond to your effort. Work hard on what is yours to effect. Release what is not. That release, that practiced, deliberate letting go of what was never yours to control, is one of the most liberating experiences available to a human being. The person who masters this does not stop caring. They start caring in the right direction. Pour your energy into what responds to you. Let go of everything that does not. Habit 4. Speak less, say more. Marcus Aurelius, in his private writings, repeatedly reminded himself to speak with restraint. He observed that most speech, most of what people say in the course of a normal day, is unnecessary. Performative. Noise masquerading as communication. Gossip. Complaints. Opinions offered without invitation. Words spoken not to communicate but to fill silence, to signal status, to manage impressions. And he noticed something. The people who spoke the most were rarely the people who said the most valuable things. There is a direct relationship between the quality of your words and the weight they carry. The person who speaks constantly is filtered out. Their words become background. People stop listening before the sentence is finished. But the person who chooses their words deliberately, who speaks when they have something real to say, and stays silent when they do not, that person commands attention. When they speak, people lean in. This is not just a communication strategy. It is a discipline of thought. Because to speak less, you have to think more. You have to actually evaluate whether what you are about to say is true, necessary, and kind, before you say it. That internal audit, run consistently, begins to change the quality of your thinking. You become more precise, more accurate, more intentional. And your silence becomes a kind of presence that most people never develop. Practice this today. In your next conversation, speak only when you have something genuine to contribute. Resist the urge to fill every pause. Let silence do work. Notice what happens in the room. The fourth Stoic habit: speak with precision. Silence is not empty, it is where clarity lives. Habit 5: do the hard thing first. This habit has a Stoic name, ascesis. It means practice, training, voluntary difficulty undertaken for the purpose of building strength. The Stoics believed that comfort, unchallenged, uninterrupted comfort, was one of the most dangerous states a human being could occupy. Not because rest is bad. Rest is essential. But because a life organized around the avoidance of discomfort is a life that gradually shrinks. The things you avoid grow in power. The muscles you do not use atrophy. The fears you never face become the walls of your world. Epictetus said that we should actively practice discomfort, not as punishment, but as training. Cold, hunger, difficulty, the hard conversation, the early morning, the task you have been avoiding. Go toward it first, before the comfortable things. There is a physiological truth behind this that the Stoics understood intuitively. Every time you do the thing you do not want to do, every time you act despite discomfort rather than waiting for comfort, you deposit something into your character account. Confidence. Not the fragile kind that depends on things going well. The deep kind. The kind that comes from repeated evidence that you can act even when you do not feel like it. That is the most durable confidence there is. And it is only built one way, by doing hard things. Repeatedly. Deliberately. Before you talk yourself out of it. Identify your hard thing. Do it first. Build the self that discomfort cannot stop. Habit 6. Review your day without mercy or cruelty. Every evening, before sleep, the Stoics practiced what they called the evening examination. Seneca described this practice in his own writing. He would review the events of the day, not casually, not with half his mind already on tomorrow, but honestly. Deliberately. Where did he act with virtue? Where did he fall short? Where did he say something he should not have? Where did he react instead of respond? Where did he waste time on what did not matter? No self-punishment. No spiral of guilt. Just honest accounting. This practice sounds simple. It is not easy. Because honest self-examination requires you to look at yourself without the protective distortions we all naturally employ. We are all prone to remembering our day in the most favorable light, to attributing our failures to circumstances and our successes to character, to seeing our actions as more intentional than they were. The Stoic evening review cuts through that. It asks, what actually happened? What did I actually do? What does that say about who I actually am right now, not who I intend to be? And then, what will I do differently tomorrow? This single practice, maintained consistently, will produce more genuine personal growth than almost anything else. Because growth requires accurate feedback. And the most accurate feedback available to you is your own honest assessment of your own actions. No one knows your day better than you do. Use that knowledge. Before you sleep, examine. Not to judge yourself, but to know yourself. And from knowing to improve. Habit 7. Choose your company as carefully as your food. Seneca wrote one of the most practically important sentences in all of Stoic literature. He said that spending time with people of poor character is like spending time in a sick room. You breathe the same air and you risk taking on the same disease. This is not snobbery. This is not elitism. This is a clear-eyed recognition of one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. We become who we spend time with. Not immediately. Not dramatically. But gradually, inevitably, the values, the language, the standards, the habits, the beliefs of the people around you migrate into you. If you spend your time with people who complain, you will begin to complain. If you spend your time with people who have no ambition, your ambition will quietly erode. If you spend your time with people who treat mediocrity as acceptable, your standards will adjust downward without you noticing. And the reverse is equally true, and far more powerful. The person who deliberately seeks out people who are growing, who are building, who hold themselves to a high standard, that person will be pulled upward. Their thinking will expand. Their standards will rise. Their sense of what is possible will widen. Audit your circle honestly. Not with judgment toward others, but with clarity about what each relationship is doing to your trajectory. Some relationships build you. Protect those. Some relationships drain you without return. Limit those. Some relationships actively pull you toward a smaller version of yourself. End those, where you can, with compassion but without hesitation. You are the average of what surrounds you. Choose your surroundings as deliberately as you choose everything else that matters. Habit 8. Live as if today could be enough. This habit comes from one of the most powerful ideas in all of Stoic thought. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. Not as a morbid fixation. Not as a reason for despair. As a clarifying lens. Marcus Aurelius returned to this repeatedly. He wrote about the great emperors, the great philosophers, the great conquerors who came before him, all of them gone. All of their certainty, all of their plans, all of their significance, dissolved into time. And he asked himself, knowing this, what actually matters? The practice of memento mori, of genuinely sitting with the reality of your own mortality, does something extraordinary to your priorities. The petty argument suddenly seems less worth having. The grudge you have been carrying loses its weight. The approval you have been seeking from people who do not matter, you stop seeking it. And in their place, something real emerges. What do I actually want to do with the time that is genuinely mine? Who do I actually want to be, knowing that I will not always have the chance? What would I do today if I knew my capacity to do it was not guaranteed? This is not about urgency that creates anxiety. It is about presence that creates meaning. The person who lives with the awareness of their own impermanence does not procrastinate on what matters. Does not defer the important for the urgent. Does not spend the currency of their life on things they never actually valued. Live today with the gravity that comes from knowing it is finite. Let that awareness make you fully present for what is real. Habit 9. Practice voluntary discomfort. This habit deepens what we explored earlier with ascesis. Seneca practiced it in a specific way. Periodically, deliberately, he would live for a few days as if he had nothing. Simple food. Simple clothes. No luxuries. No comforts beyond what was necessary. Not because he could not afford otherwise, but to remind himself of something vital. That his peace of mind did not depend on his circumstances. This practice served two purposes. First, it built what Seneca called the muscle of simplicity, the ability to be genuinely okay with less. So that if fortune turned, as fortune always eventually does, he would not be destroyed by the loss. Second, it recalibrated his appreciation. After a few days of voluntary simplicity, the ordinary pleasures of his life returned with extraordinary vividness. The meal that had become routine suddenly tasted remarkable. The comfort that had been taken for granted became something he could genuinely feel. We live in the most materially abundant period in human history. And we are among the least satisfied people who have ever lived. Because abundance without gratitude produces numbness. Having everything without appreciating anything is its own kind of poverty. Voluntary discomfort breaks the numbness. It reminds you, in your body, not just your mind, that most of what you have is gift, not guarantee. And from that reminder comes gratitude. And from genuine gratitude comes a quality of presence and satisfaction that no amount of accumulation can produce. Choose difficulty sometimes. Let it remind you of what you have. Let it prove to you that you are more than your comfort. Habit 10. Act justly in every small thing. Marcus Aurelius believed that virtue was not a grand gesture. It was not the heroic act performed on the world's stage. It was not the sacrifice witnessed by thousands. It was the 10,000 small decisions, made privately, made consistently, made when no one was watching and there was no reward for doing the right thing, that actually constituted a person's character. How you treat the person who can do nothing for you. How honest you are in the small transaction where dishonesty would never be detected. How patient you are in the minor frustration where losing your temper would have no real consequence. How generous you are when generosity costs you something real. These are the moments that build, or erode, who you are. Because character is not what you do when it matters. Character is what you do all the time. And when it matters, you simply reveal what you have already built. The Stoic habit of justice is not about being perfect. It is about being intentional. About treating every interaction, no matter how small, no matter how unobserved, as an opportunity to practice being the person you say you want to be. The cashier. The colleague. The person who has no power in the situation. The moment of frustration where fairness would cost you something. Choose justice. Every time. In the small things. The small things are the only things. Everything else is made of them. Practice virtue in private. What you do when no one is watching is who you actually are. Habit 11. End each day with gratitude for what is. The final habit is perhaps the most countercultural of all. Because gratitude is talked about constantly and practiced almost never. Not real gratitude. Not the kind that goes beneath the surface of a list written in a journal because someone told you to write it. The Stoic practice of gratitude is something deeper. It is the deliberate, practiced recognition that the life you have right now, with all its imperfections, all its unfinished business, all its distance from what you hoped it would be, contains within it extraordinary gifts that you have stopped seeing. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He would enumerate, specifically, concretely, the things he was grateful for. Not in abstract. Not, I am grateful for my health. But today I had the use of my eyes, my legs, my mind. Today the people I love were present. Today I had the chance to do work that mattered. Specific. Embodied. Real. This practice does something neurological as well as philosophical. The mind that regularly scans for what is good, what is working, what is present, what is enough, begins to perceive differently. It stops filtering for what is missing and starts seeing what is here. And what is here, seen clearly, is usually more than we have given it credit for. This is the final habit because it closes the loop. The day began with intention, with choosing who you would be. It ends with recognition of what that day, lived imperfectly but genuinely, actually contained. That recognition, compounded over months and years, produces something the Stoics called eudaimonia. It is translated as happiness, but it means something richer. It means the deep, settled flourishing of a person who is living in alignment with their own deepest values. Not excitement. Not pleasure. Not the temporary satisfaction of getting what you wanted. Something quieter and far more durable. The sense that your life, right now, today, is genuinely yours. And that it is enough. End every day by seeing what you have. Not what is missing. What is here? What is real? What is enough? All 11 together. Let me bring these together. Because habits in isolation are techniques. Habits in relationship with each other are a way of life. The morning intention sets the direction. The premeditation of hardship prepares you for the road. The control of what is yours focuses your energy precisely. The discipline of speech deepens your thinking. Doing the hard thing first builds the self that can be trusted. The evening review keeps you honest with yourself. Choosing your company carefully protects the environment of your growth. Living with awareness of impermanence makes you present for what is real. Voluntary discomfort builds resilience and recalibrates appreciation. Acting justly in small things constructs your actual character. Ending with gratitude closes the day with recognition of what is genuinely good. These are not 11 separate things. They are one thing, seen from 11 angles. They are the architecture of a life that is deliberately, consciously, unmistakably lived. Not a perfect life. The Stoics were not after perfection. They were after something better than perfection. A life of continuous, honest, courageous practice. A life where you fall short sometimes and return without drama. Where you fail and examine honestly and begin again. Where the standard is not flawlessness but integrity, the integrity of someone who is genuinely trying to become the person they are capable of being. That person is available to you. Not someday. Not when conditions improve. Not when you feel ready. Now. With the morning that comes tomorrow. With the first decision of the day after that. One habit. Practiced consistently. then another, then another, until the life you are living looks like the life you actually chose. The call to your future self. I want to speak directly to you before we close. You watched this for a reason. Something in you knew that the version of yourself you have been settling for is not the final version. Something in you, quiet but persistent, knows that more is available. That the discipline is possible. That the leveling up is real. That something is worth listening to. Pick one habit from today. Just one. The one that spoke to you most directly. The one where you felt the recognition of this is exactly what I have been missing. Practice it this week. Not perfectly. Just consistently. And when you feel it beginning to take root, when you notice that the morning feels different, or the conversation went differently, or you did the hard thing when you would have previously avoided it, come back here. Because we go deeper every single week. Every week on this channel, we take Stoic philosophy seriously, not as ancient history, not as decorative quotes, but as a living, breathing, daily practice for people who are serious about who they are becoming. Subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that bell so you never miss what we build here together. Share this with someone who needs it, someone who is ready to stop coasting and start constructing. Because the life that is available to the disciplined mind, the life that opens up when you stop reacting and start choosing, that life is extraordinary. And it belongs to anyone willing to do the work. The Stoics proved it. Across centuries. Across circumstances that would have broken lesser people. They proved that the quality of a human life is not determined by what happens to it. It is determined by the habits of the person living it. You now have the habits. The rest is yours. We will see you in the next one. Nothing changes by chance. Stay focused. The Stoic mindset that separates the disciplined from the distracted. The brutal opening truth. Let me tell you what is actually happening in your life right now. You are waiting. Maybe you don't call it waiting. Maybe you call it planning. Maybe you call it thinking about it. Maybe you call it getting ready, or almost there, or just not the right time yet. But underneath all of those comfortable words is one uncomfortable truth. You are waiting for something to change on its own. You are waiting for the right moment to arrive. For motivation to show up at your door. For circumstances to shift in your favor. For life to somehow rearrange itself around your dreams. And I need to tell you, with every ounce of respect I have for you, that it is never going to happen. Not because you are not capable. Not because your goals are too big. Not because the world is against you. But because of a principle so ancient, so universal, so mathematically precise that no amount of hoping can override it. Nothing changes by chance. Not one single thing in the life of a person who built something real happened by accident. Not their discipline. Not their results. Not their peace of mind. Not their relationships. Not their character. Every single thing that matters was constructed. Deliberately. Painfully. Quietly. One decision at a time. When no one was watching, when there was no applause, when the only voice in the room was the one inside them saying, "Keep going." Welcome to Stoic Mindset. If you are new here, subscribe right now, because what we do on this channel is not motivational decoration. This is not content designed to make you feel good for 11 minutes and then forget. This is philosophy built for warfare. The warfare of daily life. The warfare of the distracted mind against the focused will. Today, we are going all the way in. We are talking about focus. Real focus. Stoic focus. The kind that does not depend on mood or inspiration or favorable conditions. The kind that changes everything. Stay with me. Part 1. The myth of the lucky break. Let's start by dismantling something. Because there is a story that gets told constantly in our culture, and it is quietly destroying people's relationship with their own effort. The story goes like this. Someone succeeds. Someone builds something extraordinary. Someone transforms their life. And the story that gets told about them, the version that spreads, the version that feels satisfying, is the story of the lucky break. The right place at the right time. The connection that fell into their lap. The idea that arrived out of nowhere. The circumstances that aligned perfectly. We love that story. We tell it constantly. Because it is comfortable. Do you know why it is comfortable? Because if success is about luck, if the great outcomes of life are distributed randomly by chance, then your lack of results is not your responsibility. It means the universe just hasn't favored you yet. It means your moment is coming. It means you can wait a little longer. The Stoics would have called this a dangerous fiction. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the most powerful empire in the known world, did not believe in luck as a governing force. He believed in preparation, in effort, in the daily, unglamorous, relentless work of becoming someone who was ready when opportunity appeared. There is a famous idea, not originally Stoic, but perfectly Stoic in spirit, that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Marcus lived that. He did not wake up as a wise emperor. He trained himself. Every morning, before the demands of the empire consumed his day, he wrote. He reflected. He practiced philosophy the way an athlete practices a sport, not because it was pleasant, but because it was necessary. He understood that the man who showed up with discipline every day was not lucky. He was ready. And ready looks like luck to people who were never prepared. Nothing changes by chance. Preparation changes things. Focus changes things. Consistent, deliberate, chosen effort, that changes things. Chance changes nothing. Chance is the story we tell about other people's work when we don't want to examine our own. Part 2: What focus actually is. Now I want to challenge the way you think about focus. Because when most people say they need to focus, what they mean is they need to concentrate harder. Stare at the task longer. Stop getting distracted by their phone. That is not focus. That is attention management. Focus, real focus, is something much deeper, much more structural, much more powerful. The Stoic concept closest to this is prohairesis, which is often translated as will, or choice, or the capacity for deliberate intention. Epictetus placed prohairesis at the absolute center of human life. He said it was the only thing genuinely ours. The one faculty that, fully developed, could make a person unconquerable. Not physically unconquerable. Unconquerable in will. And prohairesis is not something you switch on when you sit down to work. It is not a setting on your brain you can activate by removing distractions. It is a trained orientation of your entire self toward what matters. Real focus is not about what you do for 2 hours in the morning. Real focus is about what you refuse to do. What you stop caring about. What you deliberately, consciously, repeatedly choose to let go of, so that your energy, your attention, and your time can flow toward what actually counts. This is why scattered people stay scattered no matter how many productivity systems they try. They are trying to add focus onto a life that is fundamentally oriented toward distraction. They follow 10 people giving advice. They start projects and abandon them. They consume inspiration instead of applying it. They mistake being busy for being directed. And underneath all of that movement, all of that noise, there is no clear answer to the most important question. What are you actually for? Because focus is not a technique. Focus is an identity. The focused person is not someone with a better calendar. They are someone who has decided, deeply, finally, without negotiation, what they are about. What they are building. What they are willing to suffer for. And once that decision is made, genuinely made, focus is not something you have to force. It becomes the natural expression of who you are. Part 3: The Architecture of Distraction. Let's talk about what you are actually up against. Because I want to be fair to you. Staying focused in the world we live in is not simply a matter of willpower. The environment around you has been engineered, deliberately, expensively, by some of the most intelligent people on the planet, to steal your attention. Every notification. Every algorithm. Every infinite scroll. Every platform that measures its success in minutes of your life consumed. These are not neutral tools. They are attention extraction systems. And they are extraordinarily good at what they do. But here is what the Stoics would say about that, and this is important. The obstacle is not an excuse. The obstacle is the training ground. Seneca wrote extensively about the enemies of the focused life. He didn't have smartphones. But he had the Roman equivalent: gossip, social performance, the endless demands of public life, the seductive noise of popularity and status. He wrote about how most people live on the surface of their lives, constantly reacting, never choosing, blown around by whatever stimulus arrives next. He called this a kind of sleep, a waking unconsciousness. And he said the first act of philosophy, the first act of a real life, is to wake up. To notice that you have been reacting. And to choose, for perhaps the first time, to act instead. The architecture of distraction is real. The forces pulling your attention away from what matters are powerful and relentless. But they are external. And the Stoics were absolutely clear on this. External forces have exactly as much power over you as you grant them. Not 1 unit more. The person who has trained their prohairesis, their capacity for deliberate choice, can walk through the most distracting environment on earth and remain oriented toward what matters. Not because they are not tempted, but because they have trained their response to temptation. They have practiced returning, again and again, to what is real, to what is chosen, to what is theirs. That is the training. That is the work. Part 4: The Cost of an Unfocused Life. I want to sit here for a moment, because I think we understand intellectually that distraction is bad. We know we should focus more. We say we want to be more disciplined. But I don't think most people have fully calculated the actual cost of living without focus. Not the productivity cost. Not the career cost. The existential cost. Seneca wrote something that has followed serious thinkers for 2,000 years. He said that it is not that we have a short time to live, it is that we waste most of it. He was not speaking about entertainment or rest. Rest is not waste. Restoration is not waste. He was talking about the years, sometimes the entire decades, that people spend doing things they never actually chose, pursuing approval they never needed, maintaining relationships that drain rather than build, chasing status markers that feel hollow the moment they are achieved. An unfocused life is not just an inefficient life. It is a life that, when examined honestly, often much too late, turns out not to have been the one you actually wanted. This is the deepest cost. Not the missed opportunity. Not the unfinished project. The person you were becoming, the life that was available to you if you had directed your energy deliberately, that is what distraction takes. Marcus Aurelius returned to this again and again in his private writings. He knew that time was the only truly irreplaceable resource. He knew that every hour spent in unnecessary distraction, in meaningless social performance, in worry about things outside his control, every such hour was gone permanently. He was an emperor. He had access to every pleasure the ancient world could offer. And he kept calling himself back to his purpose. Not because he was joyless, but because he understood that purpose, real, chosen, committed purpose, is where real joy lives. Not in distraction. Not in escape. In the feeling of your life moving in the direction you have chosen. That feeling is only available to the focused. Part 5: The 3 Enemies of Focus. Let me name the 3 forces that will destroy your focus if you let them. These are not abstract. You will recognize them. You may be fighting them right now. The first enemy is noise. Not just auditory noise, though that matters, but informational noise. Opinion noise. The constant, crushing flood of other people's thoughts, other people's priorities, other people's emergencies demanding space in your mind. Social media is the most efficient noise delivery system ever invented. 14 seconds on a platform and you have absorbed 12 other people's emotional states, 4 opinions on topics you never cared about, and 2 pieces of information that will be forgotten by tomorrow but will somehow occupy mental space today. The Stoic prescription for noise is radical by modern standards. Selective withdrawal. Seneca deliberately spent time in his own company. Not as isolation, but as recalibration. As a way of hearing his own thoughts clearly enough to know which ones were actually his. You cannot focus on what you have not heard. And you cannot hear yourself in constant noise. Audit your inputs. Ruthlessly. What are you consuming that you never actually chose? What voices have access to your mind that have not earned that access? Reduce the noise. Protect the silence. Your clearest thoughts live there. The second enemy is diffusion. This is the mistake of doing 10 things at 60% instead of one thing at 100%. Most people are not unfocused because they lack ambition. They are unfocused because they have too many ambitions running simultaneously, and not enough commitment to any one of them to see real results. They start the business and the podcast and the side project and the new fitness routine and the meditation practice all at once. And because everything is important, nothing is important. The Stoics practiced something they called amor fati, love of fate, love of what is. And one application of that principle is this: love where you are. Be fully here. Not half here while half somewhere else. Pick the thing. The one thing that, if it succeeded, would change your life. And give it your full self. Not what's left after everything else. Your full self. Diffusion is comfortable because it feels like progress. You are always doing something. But scattered motion is not momentum. It is exhaustion without destination. The third enemy is inconsistency. This is the one that kills the most dreams. Not the dramatic failure. Not the catastrophic mistake. The slow erosion of commitment. The day you skip that becomes the week. The habit you break once that becomes the habit you no longer have. The goal you deprioritize today that quietly becomes the goal you have given up on. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He wrote about the danger of the small compromise. The one exception. The moment you allow your standards to slip because it has been a hard day, or you are tired, or you tell yourself you deserve a break. Rest is not the enemy. Genuine rest restores. But inconsistency disguised as rest, the day off that your commitment did not authorize, that is corrosive. Because every time you break your word to yourself, you are teaching yourself something. That your commitments are negotiable. And a negotiable commitment is not a commitment. It is a preference. And preferences bend. Build the discipline of doing what you said you would do, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. Especially on those days. Because that is where character is built. In the gap between feeling and action. In the choice to move when every comfortable impulse says to stay still. Part 6. The daily practice of the focused life. Let me give you something you can use. The Stoics were philosophers of practice. They did not separate wisdom from action. For them, a philosophy you did not live was not a philosophy, it was decoration. So here is a daily architecture for focus. A Stoic framework. Not a productivity hack. A way of being. Morning, before the world gets in. Before you check your phone. Before the notifications, the messages, the news, the demands. Take 5 minutes. Maybe 10. And ask yourself one question. What is the one thing today, that if I do it with my full effort, will make this day meaningful? Not the list. Not the schedule. The one thing. Write it down. Commit to it. Make it your anchor for the entire day. Marcus Aurelius did this. Every morning, before he was emperor, he was a student, his own student, setting his intention for the day ahead. Throughout the day, the return practice. You will get pulled. You will drift. The noise will come for you. The practice is not preventing the drift. The practice is the return. Every time you notice you have lost your thread, every time you catch yourself reacting instead of acting, consuming instead of creating, performing instead of building, just return. No self-criticism. No guilt spiral. Just return. The quality of your focus is not measured by how rarely you drift. It is measured by how consistently you come back. Evening, the honest accounting. Before you sleep, a brief examination. The Stoics called this the evening review. 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short of what I intended? What will I do differently tomorrow? No harshness. No spiraling. Just honesty. The person who examines their day is the person who improves. The person who never looks is the person who repeats the same mistakes for years and calls it bad luck. This is the daily practice. Simple. Demanding. Transformative over time. Part 7. What Focus Builds. I want to paint a picture for you. Because I do not want this to feel like discipline for discipline's sake. Like suffering because suffering is noble. The Stoics were not masochists. They were architects. They built things. Inner things and outer things. Character, yes. But also empires. Also philosophies that lasted thousands of years. Also relationships of extraordinary depth. Also lives of genuine meaning. And all of it was built the same way. One focused day at a time. Here is what the compounding of focus produces over time. It produces skill. The person who works deliberately at their craft every day, for years, becomes extraordinary. Not because they were gifted. Because they showed up. It produces identity. When you do something consistently, when you are someone who does not flinch, who does not quit, who keeps the commitment to themselves even when no one is watching, you become that person. Your sense of yourself changes. Your confidence is not borrowed from results. It is built from the evidence of your own consistency. It produces peace. And this one surprises people. They expect that the focused, disciplined life would feel rigid, tight, joyless. It is the opposite. The person who is scattered, who is doing everything and completing nothing, who is always distracted, always behind, always reacting, that person lives in low-grade anxiety. It is the anxiety of a life that feels out of control. The focused person, the person who knows what they are about, who honors their commitments, who ends most days having done what they set out to do, that person experiences something that most people are desperately chasing. Enough. The feeling that today was real. That they were present for it. That the hours meant something. Not every day. Life is not a formula. There will be hard days, unclear days, days when nothing goes as planned. But the general tenor of the focused life is a profound, quiet satisfaction. Not excitement. Not the dopamine spike of novelty. Something more sustainable. More real. The satisfaction of a life being lived on purpose. Part 8. For the one who keeps starting over. I want to speak to someone specifically right now. You have been here before. You have had the insight. You have felt the clarity. You have made the decision, really made it, and then watched it dissolve within weeks, sometimes days. And you are wondering whether something is wrong with you. Whether you are fundamentally lacking in the thing that other people seem to have. Whether discipline is something you are just not built for. I want to tell you something, and I want you to hear it. The fact that you keep starting over is not evidence of weakness. It is evidence that you have not quit. The person who fails and walks away, that is a different story. But you? You are still here. Still trying. Still listening. Still looking for the path. That is something. That is, in fact, the thing. The Stoics did not promise that the path would be smooth. They did not promise that virtue would be easy to maintain, or that focus would feel natural from the first day. Epictetus was explicit: philosophy, real philosophy, lived philosophy, is hard. It requires you to act against your immediate impulses. To choose long-term over short-term. To do the difficult thing when the easy thing is right there. But he also said this: the person who tries and fails and returns is engaged in the real work. The person who never tries is not even in the game. You are in the game. So stop treating your restarting as failure. Start treating it as practice. Every time you return to your intention, every time you get up off the floor of another abandoned attempt and choose again, you are building something. You are building the muscle of return. And one day, not dramatically, not with a thunderclap, that muscle will be strong enough that the drift will not take you as far. The fall will be shorter. The return will be faster. And then one day, it will just be who you are. Not because change happened to you. But because you refused, again and again, stubbornly, quietly, to let the unfocused version of yourself be the final word. Nothing changes by chance. You change. By choice. By practice. By return. Part 9. The world needs your focus. Let me close with something that goes beyond personal development. Because I think focus is not just a personal achievement. I think it is, in some real sense, a responsibility. We live in a world that is desperately short of people who think clearly, who act from values rather than impulse, who can stay on task when everything around them is designed to pull them off it. The distracted masses are easy to manipulate, easy to sell to, easy to direct, easy to keep consuming and reacting and never building. But the focused person, the person who has trained their attention, who knows what they are for, who is building something real, that person is different. That person creates rather than consumes. That person leads rather than follows. That person contributes rather than just participates. And that is desperately needed. Not just for your benefit. For the people around you. For whatever you are building. For the version of the world that exists because you decided to show up with your full self. The Stoics believed that the good life was not a private achievement. It overflowed. The person of genuine virtue, disciplined, focused, clear, made the people around them better simply by being what they were. That is what is available to you. Not just a better career or a more productive morning. A life that means something. A presence that other people feel. A legacy, even a quiet one, that exists because you refuse to let yourself be scattered. That is the invitation. That is what focus, sustained over a lifetime, actually produces. Subscribe and stay in the fight. If this reached you today, if something in these words stirred something in you, do not let it end here. The insight that stays at the level of feeling and never becomes action is the most painful kind. Because you got close. You felt it. And then life moved on and took the feeling with it. So do something right now. Not later. Now. Decide on the one thing, the one real commitment, that you have been deferring. The one area where you have been waiting for chance to do what only choice can do. Write it down. Tell someone. Begin. And if you want to keep building this, if you want weekly content that goes this deep, that takes Stoic philosophy seriously as a tool for living rather than a collection of quotes for social media, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit the bell. Every week, we come back here and we do the work together. We go deeper into the philosophy. We talk about what it actually looks like to live with discipline, with focus, with the quiet, unshakable resolve of someone who has stopped waiting for life to change on its own. Because nothing changes by chance. Not your circumstances. Not your character. Not your life. But you, focused, committed, returning again and again to what matters. You can change everything. We will see you in the next one. Weak men react, strong men think. Have you ever said something in anger, and immediately wished you could take it back? Have you ever made a decision in a moment of panic, and watched it destroy everything you worked for? Have you ever let your emotions drive the car, while your mind sat helplessly in the back seat? That's not weakness of character. That's not a flaw in your DNA. That is the difference between a man who reacts and a man who thinks. And today, right now, we are going to change which one you are. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to share with you is not a motivational speech. It is a manual. A blueprint. Tested by warriors, kings, and philosophers who lived in a world far more brutal than yours. And it works. Open Book Section 1. The Nature of Reaction. Let's start with the truth that most men never want to hear. The majority of your suffering, not the suffering caused by disease, or poverty, or loss, but the day-to-day suffering, the arguments, the regrets, the self-destruction, most of it is self-inflicted. Not because you're stupid. Not because you're broken. But because you were never taught the difference between a stimulus and a response. Here's what I mean. Something happens. Your boss humiliates you in a meeting. Your partner says something that cuts deep. You get rejected. You get disrespected. You get blindsided. That's the stimulus. And in a fraction of a second, Before your rational mind even wakes up, your body has already begun to respond. Heart rate rises. Palms sweat. Jaw tightens. A fire ignites behind your eyes. That is biology. That is the ancient survival machine doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is, you are not in the jungle anymore. The threat is not a lion. The threat is a difficult conversation. A social situation. A moment of uncertainty. And if you let that ancient machine drive every decision you make, you will spend your entire life putting out fires you yourself started. The Stoics understood this over 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who commanded armies, governed millions, and faced betrayal from his own generals, wrote in his private journal words that echo through centuries. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He wasn't writing that for us. He was writing it for himself. A reminder. A discipline. A daily practice. Because even the most powerful man in the known world had to train himself not to react. If he had to train, so do you. Brain Section 2: What Strong Men Actually Do. Now let's talk about the other side. Strong men don't suppress their emotions. That's a myth. That's the toxic version of this conversation that I refuse to give you. Strong men process their emotions. They feel the fire, but they don't become the fire. There is a pause. A breath. A split second of mastery between what happens to you and what you choose to do next. The ancient Greek word for this was prohairesis, the faculty of choice. The one thing no one can ever take from you. Epictetus, a man who was literally born into slavery, who had no freedom, no wealth, no status, built his entire philosophy on this single idea. If someone insults you, they have not harmed you. They have only expressed their own character. If someone takes something from you, your job, your reputation, your relationship, they can only take what was never truly yours to keep. But your choice, how you respond, how you carry yourself, what meaning you assign to what happens, that is yours forever. That is where power lives. Now, what does this look like in practical terms? A weak man gets passed over for a promotion. He spends 3 days in silent rage. He starts performing poorly to get back at his employer. He gossips. He disconnects. He quits, and blames everyone around him. A strong man gets passed over for a promotion. He feels the sting. He lets himself feel it, fully, privately. Then he asks one question. What is this showing me that I need to see? Maybe he wasn't as ready as he thought. Maybe that company was never going to value him, and now he knows. Maybe this rejection is the nudge that launches his greatest chapter. He doesn't react. He evaluates. He decides. He moves. That is the difference. High Voltage Section 3: The Biology of Reaction and How to Beat It. Let's go deeper. Because if you understand why you react, you'll find it much easier to stop. When you perceive a threat, emotional, social, or physical, your amygdala fires. This is the part of your brain responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. It is fast. Incredibly fast. And for a brief window, roughly 90 seconds, neurochemicals flood your bloodstream. Cortisol. Adrenaline. Your body prepares for battle. Now here is the critical insight that neuroscientist Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor discovered. The physical sensation of an emotion only lasts about 90 seconds. After that, if you keep feeling it, it's because you chose to keep thinking the thoughts that re-trigger it. Which means the anger that lasts hours? You are feeding it. The anxiety that keeps you up at night? You are watering it. You are not a victim of your emotions beyond that first 90 seconds. You are a gardener, choosing which seeds to keep watering. So what do strong men do in those 90 seconds? They breathe. Consciously. Deliberately. Not because breathing is magic, but because conscious breathing is the fastest way to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. The rest and digest system. The thinking system. When you take a slow, controlled breath in for 4 counts, hold for 4, and exhale for 6 or 8, You are literally hacking your nervous system back to clarity. This is not soft. This is strategic. Navy SEALs use this technique before breaching a hostile building. Surgeons use it before critical operations. Chess grandmasters use it between moves. The most high-performing men in the world don't react faster. They pause smarter. Section 4. The 3 tests before you speak or act. The ancient Stoics had a framework for decision-making that I want to give you today. I call it the 3-gate test. Before you speak, before you act, before you send that message, pass your response through 3 gates. Gate 1. Is it necessary? Does this response serve a real purpose? Or am I just satisfying the urge to be heard, to win, to punish? Unnecessary words are almost always weapons of self-destruction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Most reactive behavior fails Gate 1. Gate 2. Is it just? Is your response fair, not just to yourself, but to the situation as it actually is? Not as your anger is painting it? Weak men see enemies. Strong men see circumstances. Weak men assign malice. Strong men ask about context. Before you accuse, ask. Before you condemn, investigate. Before you burn a bridge, consider whether you'll need to cross it again. Gate 3. Is it yours to carry? This one is powerful. Before you take on a battle, ask whether it belongs to you. Not every conflict is yours to enter. Not every wrong is yours to correct. Not every insult deserves a response. Epictetus said, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." The man who fights every battle exhausts himself, and wins nothing. The man who chooses his battles, carefully, deliberately, becomes someone others fear to challenge. Pass your reactions through these 3 gates. Most of them won't survive. And the world will be better for it. Fire. Section 5. The discipline of the long game. Let me paint you 2 pictures. Picture the first man. Every time he's challenged, he rises to the bait. Every slight becomes a war. Every inconvenience becomes a crisis. He burns through relationships, opportunities, and goodwill with the reckless spending of a man who believes there is an unlimited supply. There isn't. At 50, he looks back at a trail of scorched earth and wonders where everyone went. Why his career stalled. Why his children don't call. Why respect feels like something that happened to other men. He reacted his way out of his own life. Picture the second man. He also felt the anger. He also faced the betrayal. He also had moments where the fire in his chest begged to be unleashed. But he learned, slowly, painfully, through practice, to pause. To think. To choose. At 50, people describe him in one word: solid. He is the man others come to in a crisis. The man whose opinion carries weight because it is never given carelessly. The man whose presence in a room changes the temperature, not with volume, but with gravity. He built that. Not through talent. Not through luck. Through the daily, relentless, unglamorous practice of thinking before reacting. This is what the Stoics called ascesis, disciplined practice. Not a one-time decision but a way of life. You don't become a thinker in a moment of inspiration. You become one in the 10,000 moments when reacting was easier, and you chose not to. Compass. Section 6. Practical daily disciplines. Let me give you something concrete. 5 practices you can start today. The first practice, the morning premeditation. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you speak to anyone, spend 5 minutes asking one question. What might challenge me today, and how do I want to respond? The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. Not to be pessimistic, but to be prepared. A man who has already thought through how he'll handle frustration, rejection, and conflict is far less likely to be hijacked by them. The second practice, the 90-second rule. When you feel the surge, the anger, the panic, the urge to respond immediately, give yourself 90 seconds. Do nothing. Say nothing. Just breathe. Most reactive damage happens in that window. Most of it can be avoided if you simply wait. The third practice, the evening review. Before you sleep, not to judge yourself, but to learn, ask, where did I react when I could have chosen? What would a wiser version of me have done? This is not self-punishment. This is calibration. This is how you close the gap between who you are and who you are becoming. The fourth practice, voluntary discomfort. Once a week, deliberately put yourself in a situation that is uncomfortable but not harmful. Cold water. Fasting. A difficult conversation you've been avoiding. A workout that goes beyond comfort. The man who practices discomfort voluntarily is never ambushed by it involuntarily. The fifth practice, slow your speech. Literally. Talk slower than feels natural. Pause before answering questions. This one simple habit signals to your nervous system that you are not in danger. It creates space between stimulus and response. And it has the added effect of making everything you say carry more weight. People listen differently to a man who speaks as if his words are worth something. I want to leave you with this. Every great man in history, every philosopher, every warrior, every leader who built something that lasted, they all shared one thing. Not intelligence. Not talent. Not even luck. Discipline of mind. The ability to stand in the fire and choose how to respond. That is not something you are born with or without. It is something you build. Brick by brick. Day by day. Choice by choice. You started that building today. Don't stop. Direct address to camera/audience, warm, confident. If this spoke to something inside you, if you felt even one moment of recognition, one shift in how you see yourself or your patterns, then you are already on the path. Subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell. Because this is what we do here. We don't chase hype. We don't sell shortcuts. We go deep into the philosophy, the psychology, and the practical disciplines that separate the man who drifts from the man who decides. Every week, we bring you content that challenges you, elevates you, and sends you back into your life sharper than you came in. If that's the channel you've been looking for, you just found it. Subscribe. Stay. Grow. This is only the beginning.